The #1 selling mystery character in all fiction is on the air. The hard-hitting
Eli Zaret joins the soul of Detroit.
The makers of Kicks, tasty, crispy corn puffs, food for action. And the makers of mild, flavorful Camels, America's most popular cigarette. And the publishers of Esquire magazine, in cooperation with
The Red Trouble Miller,
present
Eli Zaret.
You asked it around, get the questions out of my suit. It's gone.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Come on.
That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You might be qualified, ML.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now?
Hey kids, it's your old pal, ML Elric, and I'm talking to everybody. I haven't canceled anybody. I haven't unfriended anybody. I'm not avoiding anybody. Although, if you're one of our Patreon subscribers, you can see who I'm avoiding unintentionally. And that's just because he's not here, Mr. Shawn Windsor. He says he'll be here as soon as that Lions game wraps up. Apparently it went late. That's what I was told. I came home from my hockey game. We won 2-1.
No one cares about your game. Sorry.
Well, this is a setup. This is a setup. My wife
Still.
and my nephew and my nephew's cousin were sitting in the basement watching Lions game, and I said the difference between this game and my game is we won. And then I went to bed, and then I heard him screaming in the basement because it turns out I guess the Lions pulled it out.
What time did you go to bed?
I'm old. I went to bed about 11.
Eli, what time did you go to bed?
I went to bed probably about 10:30. They were trailing 23-13, and I knew they still had a chance, but I was pretty much burnt by then, and I figured I'll just watch it in the morning.
It is hard as hell to stay up this late anymore. When Monday Night Football started, I was thinking about this last night because the game kicks off on Mondays, I think at 8:20. But it used to always be 9 o'clock growing up.
9:05 is actually, yeah.
So when it started in the early 70s, was it always 9 o'clock?
It was always 9 o'clock, and it wouldn't end until well past 11:30 or actually midnight. And you wondered because prime time on TV was always 8 to 11. The best shows run from 8 to 11. Fringe is before that, and late night is after that. And why they started it that late, they wouldn't start it when prime time begins, could never figure that out.
Well, they want the bonus.
And the West Coast too.
They want to showcase the show before where they can pile in tons of commercials.
Right.
Ugh.
I guess, but that was, and I was tired, by the way, Mark, because the election, that's always a late night for us. In 2020, I was at the then TCF Center until like 4:30 in the morning. This year, I was in bed by then because guess what? We kind of knew who won. And because there was some foolishness with some of these MAGA guys hassling people at polling places, which is pretty shameful.
And none of that really made the news because it was such a resounding win.
Right. And the I think police were reluctant to acknowledge that there were some problems, and none of it was, hugely disruptive, but certainly there was no massing at the vote counting center, because what we found out, and again, I think this applies no matter who you voted for. One side loses and takes it, and the other side loses and says it was stolen. It's like you're running for the Wolverines are running for president. Even when they lose, it's not that they lost; they got jobbed.
It's every team.
But no, the Spartans just plain on lose. We just get beat. We find creative new ways every week to get beat. But yeah, the MAGA guys won, and all of a sudden, no problem. They're still counting votes in California. Nobody's saying stop the steal. Nobody's suggesting that there's a conspiracy. So in a way, it's kind of nice that we're back to normal, where the winners say they won, the losers say the winners won, and then we can.
Well, that's a strange. That's just one sliver of normal. The Democrats have got to. The sports analogy that I have for this election is when a team loses a game. The next day in the football, they come in on Monday, they start looking at the film, and they begin the harsh analysis. And on Tuesday, when the players are off, that's when the coaches say, why did we do this? Why didn't we figure that out? Why didn't we stop him? How come we concentrated on this guy and not that guy? Why wasn't our defense ready? And so they have a harsh assessment where there's no holes barred, and that's all the Democrats need to do, because in retrospect, they made so many huge blunders that they need to completely regroup and reassess where they are and what they stand for. And to me, it isn't so much that Trump won. I'll give him credit for winning. Joe Biden blew it so badly, and we knew it all along, but didn't want to believe it, how he should have just been a one-term president like he said. So they lied about that. He lied about being a one-term president. That's bullshit. And then the people around him lied about how he's in great shape and his family. Oh, Joe, you answered all the questions, treating him like he's a child, but nothing's wrong. And then you put a candidate, not only is America not ready to elect a woman, but are they ready to elect a black woman or a black and an Indian woman, one who ran a shitty campaign in 2020? And in the first week, they put her on The View. And what does she say in The View? No, I don't see anything I would differ with Biden's policies. Are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
So what they need, and I heard you guys talking Andy Bashir before the show, what the Democrats needed to do, pick a middle-of-the-road, center-left white guy who's the opposite of Trump, who is a far-right lunatic, a regular guy would have won this election. And instead they didn't do that. They wait halfway through, looked like idiots with Biden falling down the stairs of the plane, and they put a woman who has no chance of winning, and it come off so badly. It's just...
If you look, I'll say this about Kamala. If you look at her policies and things she's done, she is really towards the center. A lot of it, she really is towards the center. She was painted and described as being way further left. And I think that I think it really boils down to she's not likable and he is.
Well,
likability is huge.
So that voice of wisdom, I should have said this a minute ago, is Eli Zaret, who's
in the intro
this week. He is, but I know some people.
What did you say? What?
You were in the intro.
You're the intro.
Yeah, your name was.
We put you in the Mike Hammer intro, but and we're all brought to you by Dr. Yaldo, who will help you see better than perfect. We'll tell you in a little while how he can do that. Luke Nowacki, who, whatever happens with the stock market, looks pretty good this week. It may look bad later. Luke will be the one who can steer you through those troubled waters to a nice, comfortable future. And the Caju Cafe, big lineup this week, some great acts. We'll tell you how to go there and get some good food, some good music, and some good times. But this goes back to what Nixon told Bob Dole way back when in the 70s. You run to the right in the primary and run to the center in the general election. That's what Republicans do. And Kamala Harris has been elected her entire career from California, which means you run to the left to get the nomination, and then you try and get to the center. So a liberal Democrat or a Democrat getting elected in California, the traits and the tricks and the talents you need are completely different from what you need to win a national election, because you have to get more towards the middle. And the positions that people were throwing at her were ones she had taken in primaries, like fracking and things like that she tried to walk back from as a candidate in the general. And that's really hard. And the thing about Andy Bashir is, for a Democrat to get elected governor of Kentucky, that is actually a major accomplishment. That's a red state. And I see Andy Bashir, and I don't know enough about him, but when I look at the historical spread, I see Andy Bashir as being kind of the next Bill Clinton, who follows a run of Republican dominance, kind of sneaks in as a good old boy who people sort of like and who seems somewhat inoffensive, and kind of takes over the Democratic Party for a while.
But if Biden had left when he was supposed to, and it was open to anybody who wanted to run for president, then a guy who wasn't in the Biden administration like Bashir could have said, we really have made some mistakes in the border. We took a crack at it, but we started too late. We need to really shore this up and do it right. There are some things the Republicans say that we kind of agree with, but this is how we want to do it our way. They could say, we all agree, letting, when you run a commercial with a 6'5" man sitting with a bunch of 5'5" women on a basketball court, it looks really, really bad, because it is bad and it is stupid. And it's something that ad with Kamala defending or talking about giving prisoners, free sex change operations is so anathema to anything 99.9% of Americans think. How can you combat that? Well, you have to somehow by moving away from this stupid policy.
I feel like, because that, once again, not part of the platform, not part of the policy.
Doesn't matter. Perception's everything.
I feel like they're always playing defense.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you have one side going, this is what you are, and then they're going, no, we're not, no, we're not, no, we're not. And people are like, yeah, no, I don't like the way that looks. Yeah, I think it's that, and we're also leaving the big elephant in the room out. it's expensive to go grocery shopping now. And
Yes.
everybody goes grocery shopping. So if you want to look at and I'm guilty of this, you look at macroeconomics and how great this country's doing relative to other countries, that's fine, because it is. We're doing really well that way. But when you look at the individual and the micro going to the grocery store, it's fucking expensive now, period. And people don't like
the
that.
three things, economy, the trans bullshit, and the border, were all big marks against them, and she was part of it. They needed somebody who could move away from their bad policies and make sense to the bulk of America.
Look at the last couple Democratic candidates that won, particularly Obama and Clinton, and they're just more likable.
Yeah.
Well,
that's true.
The
You're
irony
right. You're right.
is Joe stayed too long when usually old folks like that, they have dinner at 4 and they're in bed by 6, and he tried to go late night and it messed him up.
I know someone like that.
I was up till 5 a.m.
There he is.
in Houston. Wait, I'm confused though. I walked in and I see Eli and his notes, which I love his notes, and you're talking politics. What's happening here? What did I miss?
I think there's only two stories. There's only two stories in Detroit. There's the election and the aftermath, and there's the Lions. Other than that, what's there to talk about?
But by the way, I did stop to get a coffee this morning. I ran into a kid that I'd coached.
Wait, you stopped to get coffee?
That explains a sudden burst of energy when he gets in.
Well, no, now we know why you were late.
And I saw a kid that I hadn't seen in a few years that I coached. I've known.
Now we know why you're really late.
Really a good friend of my youngest son.
Were you getting coffee at
He
prison?
just moved back from Chicago and is staying with his parents for a bit. And he was talking about how hard it was. And I said, yeah, the cost of housing, it's not good. And he said, yeah, but the groceries. And he's 26 or so. Yeah. And Trump won men, boys, whatever, 18. He won the 18 to 29 demographic on the male side. And usually Democrats get that.
Well, if you're a dude too, I mean, if you're that age and as a dude, who's more relatable?
No, for sure. But it was interesting because he grew up in a Democratic household, but his first sentence was, "Oh yeah, groceries."
Well, Democrats, the transgender thing, that policy was there under Trump, but it's tough to say, yeah, I don't like that policy, but he started it. When you're on your heels like that, that's not a winning message.
Well, they had her talking about it, right, Mike?
Democrats.
They had a clip.
Exactly.
They had a
Democrats
Yes,
never
the clip of her saying, "Oh, sure, prisoners can get free
defense."
Right.
I couldn't even believe that's true. I thought that must have been a doctored, but no, she actually said that.
Well, look at the veteran who leaked all those documents, Chelsea Manning, right?
Yeah.
The soldier who went to prison for, was it treason, and had a sex change while he was in prison. So I think that's probably part of the policy. But there are certain things Democrats can never win on, no matter what the facts are. They talked about there were no wars, under Trump. But, well, Biden got all the troops out of Afghanistan. He did it very poorly, but they're out of there. No credit for that. They talk about Democrats never win on defense. There's that. And then the economy, the talk about, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? 4 years ago.
In the middle of the pandemic.
We're in the middle of a pandemic. Unemployment was high. The government was pumping money into people's pockets, which I think contributed to the inflation, by the way. And businesses were closed. We didn't have enough PPE. We were supposed to build more respirators than anybody. We weren't doing it. If you really looked at where we were 4 years ago, it sucked. But Democrats are never going to win by saying, actually, let's do a little history lesson here. People are like, there they go lecturing to us again, all these Ivy League eggheads. They're kind of born to die unless they can dial into an issue and say, this resonates, and they have not found that.
Here's the other thing. It's interesting, Marc.
Recency bias helps too. With are you better 4 years ago?
Absolutely. Well, not only that, a lot of folks who supported Trump don't blame him for the last year of his presidency with the COVID, right? Sure. Because it hit everywhere. It was global. And it was a global issue.
I think that's somewhat fair. I mean, his response to it.
He started late, and tens of people, because it was bad for his numbers. Remember when the boat?
No. But they think about the first 3 years of his presidency, not that last year.
I agree.
Right?
That's all I meant.
But here's the other thing too. I thought this was interesting. There was you remember the Chappelle Show, right?
I love it.
Sure,
Yeah.
I love it.
There was a sketch where he played. It was called Black Bush, and that was making
It's also one of Shawn's favorite movies.
Anyway, it was making the rounds the last few days on some.
You only need to watch the first
feeds,
60 seconds.
Some feeds that I saw you speaking of the trans issue. And I watched the sketch, and I'd forgotten. There was. Remember how the Iraq War was really a tough issue for Bush through a lot of his presidency. And the Black Bush sketch was kind of having fun with that, and he was doing a press conference. in the White House, and he was getting all these questions about oil. And he's like, oil? Who's talking about oil? And then he said, gay people are getting married, folks. Yeah. That's what we need to talk about. Do you remember that, though? That was a huge issue that the right used during the Bush years. It was just regular gay marriage. Remember the Supreme Court made their ruling and so forth? And now it's trans. So there are always going to be these, I hate the cliche, but the wedge issues, right?
Well, Republicans
There's a
are
reason
great.
they're wedge issues.
Gay,
they work.
But
they work.
Nobody's afraid of gay folks anymore, so they can't use that anymore. So they moved on to trans. And I wonder if 20 years from now we're going to care about that.
Republicans are great at finding one issue that crystallized. It was Willie Horton for the original, the white Bush against Mike Dukakis.
So white, black, right?
Yeah, and some of this stuff, Trump, and there's kind of recycling going on. People say the Republicans don't care about the environment, but they're very green when it comes to recycling ideas. This notion that there are gangs that are being let out of prison that are killing people goes back to Willie Horton. You got this scary black man who raped a white woman and killed her. Now you have these scary Venezuelans and Mexicans and other people coming who are attacking women. I'm going to protect you. It works. It worked.
So the whole when he ran the first time, they said MAGA really means make America white again. And a lot of people are worried that America isn't white enough. But the overall thing
I don't know about that.
How did the Republicans become the party of the little guy? That was always the Democrats.
And the anti-war party.
And the anti-war party. And the Republicans were the elites, the CEOs that belonged to Augusta National and run.
And that's what
they
Trump
wanted
is.
the immigrants
and now the
because they
elites
want the cheap labor. They were for the dreamers. They wanted to help people become citizens because it lowered wages. That was they wanted open
that
borders.
right there is the magic of
Republicans.
Trump. It really is, because he's once again more relatable. He's more
He's
likable.
made his party the counterculture party, which is really something.
Did you read Mitch Albom's column about? Did you read Mitch Albom's column? I don't read much, but him much. But the topic was very interesting about how the day after the election, how the elitists at the colleges made safe spaces and hot cocoa for people who
You saw
were
the milk and
traumatized
cookies and building Lego rooms.
I
and
mean,
all
is that true? Are they still that messed up?
There were some professors at Michigan State, I've been told by a colleague at Michigan State, who said on Wednesday that they weren't going to have class because they realized or they believed that a lot of their students would need to
recover,
to cope.
grieve.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, which is.
But that plays into it, right? I saw a headline about Georgetown University, the School of Public Policy. They set a room aside so kids could go in and build Legos the day after election and drink milk and cookies. I don't know if that's true or not, but the fact that headline was out there,
way to repeat it, not knowing if it's true or not.
Well, it was in the column. It's got to be true.
Well, I think it was actually from a reputable news source, and maybe that was only one classroom in that university, and maybe it didn't happen in that many places. But that doesn't matter. Once that's out there and that gets shit, it gets into that whole idea, and it's loosely tried into the trans idea too, right? That we're raising young guys that the gender identity is nobody knows who they are anymore, and that we're soft and we can't handle any diversity.
And even when Trump exaggerated to a ludicrous degree, saying a kid goes to school, a girl, they give him an operation and he comes home a boy. I mean, stuff that's so beyond what any sane person could believe, and yet somehow that just
well, I think they understand. People understand that's an exaggerated view, but it still hits home.
Right.
Well, and then Biden, what was his big issue? He kept pushing for 4 years. I'm going to forgive the college debt. If your mom or dad works in an office or turns a wrench,
you're a construction worker.
You're sitting here saying you're already giving people who are privileged a break. What are you doing? And I understand, college is really expensive. Believe me, I'm putting two through. I know it. But this notion that we're going to forgive hundreds of millions of dollars of debt for people where a lot of folks probably feel like, boy, my kid couldn't even get to college to take a loan. That's where the Democrats are losing those blue collar people. And it's been happening since Reagan. I mean, we've seen more working class people, more union people. The Teamsters didn't endorse, but their president spoke at the Republican convention. The firefighters didn't endorse. There was another major union that didn't endorse. Democrats are losing the union workers, which built that party, and they've got to find a way to get back to them. The union organizing has been an issue. Obama was going to make it easier for unions to organize. That didn't happen. Biden walked the picket line, first president to walk a picket line. That didn't seem to make a difference. Shawn Fain out there, and we've all seen the signs, Trump is a scab. That didn't make a difference. they're just not quite getting to the people who feel like they don't have it as good as everybody else. And what Trump did so effectively, I think, is say, you're right. You're getting screwed, and I'm going to go fight for you. Well, what are you going to do? We'll figure that out later. I'll make it all better, but I'm going to fight for you. And Harris is talking about joy. It's like, I just paid $4 for a loaf of bread. Where's the joy?
Yeah.
$4. That's not bad.
When Trump
I go to Aldi.
When Trump won in 2016, there are all kinds of documentaries and specials about his life, etc. And one of them explained that Mark Levin, who was the far right, took him aside.
Who hated him.
He said, but he took him aside and said, "Look, there's a lot of people that are upset in this country. There's a lot of people that see no way forward. They're angry. Tap into that anger, and you will win." And he just tapped into the anger, made enemies of the rapists from Mexico, and all these exaggerations. But it worked, and that's what he did, and that's what he's still doing. And I'm curious. Is he going to really seek retribution, or is he going to say, that's just what I said to get? So we don't know what he says he's going to follow through on and what he said that was hyperbole.
I think he's going to settle some scores. I think that's how he's wired.
I saw a story about the guy who wants to nominate for attorney general. His name is escaping me, but he's on record in the last year. He went on some show.
Kash Patel, is that the guy you're talking about?
No, he's from the FCC,
somebody with
Holman or something.
No, he's
Something
Homeland Security. He's going to be the border czar.
But he was talking about, we've got a list of people we're going to go after, and he was some Democratic politician. They want to go after Nancy Pelosi.
What's the point of that?
If I was Adam Schiff, I'd be
to
very
give
nervous,
people to give people the red meat, right?
Yeah.
Well, I bet they do try it at least, even if it doesn't go anywhere. Like, what are they going to go? How are they going to go after Nancy Pelosi? I mean, but they might try to figure out some way to get headlines out of it, right? Yeah. So maybe, it makes it feel like they're doing that.
Maybe he'll pardon the guy who beat Pelosi's husband's ass.
I don't think people really care about that. I don't think his followers really care that he goes and gets these people. That's why I think.
I mean, a group of them does, but not the vast majority that won the election.
How about those Lions?
Yeah,
I gotta give.
You were in Houston.
I got to give flowers to Shawn because I texted Shawn before the game asking for his prediction, and he goes, I don't know, 26-23.
No shit, really?
Shawn? You know what you didn't say? You didn't say who 26, who 23.
In the paper, I had 26. It's very rare that you get the score.
Yeah, right.
It's just luck. It's just dumb
Take
luck.
a victory lap, though. That's great.
I thought that it was going to be a tough, tight game, and they win in the end. I had no idea it was going to be the historical, fluky craziness that it was. No team coming back from 2 touchdowns or more down with throwing 5 interceptions in the same game. Right? That hadn't happened since 1970. It's just, what the hell is going on?
Well, my favorite report I always get from Shawn when you're on the road, and I think you love this, I think it's really cool too, is how well the fans travel. And boy, did it come through the speakers watching that game.
And you know, it's fun too for me. I don't know. You think about there are a couple of stories. First of all, I flew to Austin and a lot of Lions fans, because so many Lions fans are traveling, Delta has jacked up the prices. So if you want to go direct to a lot of these places,
book it now.
Yeah, it was $1,200 to go to Green Bay. I mean, Houston was well up over.
$1,200 to go from Detroit to Green Bay.
That's why he flew to Iron Mountain.
Exactly. Houston was well up over 1,000.
Wow.
And so I knew guys that were taking 2 and 3 stop connections. So I flew to Austin. I have sort of family there and family friends, and then drove from there. It's not that far, 2.5 hours, but. My flight was full of Lions fans on the way to Austin, and the flight attendant, the one who had manned the PA or was in charge of the PA, was a Texans fan. And
is that a gender neutral term? She didn't man the PA.
When we
there's
pulled
a pussification of America right there.
When we pulled up to the gate, and the last little message is like, "And go Texans," and everybody booed and jeered. But there was a video circulating around yesterday of 40 or 50 Lions fans.
Yeah,
in
the flight. We played
dancing. Did you watch? And they're all it was like a choreographed dance. A Detroit thing. Most of the crowd was black. They were all Lions fans, and it was awesome. And then there was a post underneath that, a comment underneath that said, this was somebody who was at the Delta Gate at Houston Intercontinental at the Bush. Speaking of Black Bush, I think an airport's named Bush, after Bush. And the agent said, "Oh my God, I've never seen so many tinted glasses in my life. What is going on?" Because of the buffs.
Oh, God.
And I just thought that was absolutely no. They thought it was really cool. I just thought that was absolutely great. And the new defensive end, Zadarius Smith, was on the set. Right? Was it the Sunday night set? And who looks like Rasheed Wallace, by the way. And that's another thing people think is magical about this because Rasheed Wallace was traded middle of the year.
Really?
And they won the title that year. Anyway,
all the divine intervention.
Smith had the buffs on. Cade Cunningham. Remember when he got drafted? He wore the buffs on draft night. But it's like a Buffs takeover. It's a Detroit takeover out there, and it's awesome.
Well, I was after our hockey game. We went to Buffalo Wild Wings, and sitting in front of it. So one of my friends, Costa, was there, and he said, "Do you guys notice that things are different here after games now that the Lions are on?" And we're like, "Yeah, it's really crowded." Sitting at the table in front of us was a family of Indian Americans. Everybody, from the oldest guy to the youngest, had jerseys with a player's name on it. And one of the guys was running around the restaurant every time something happened, making a ruckus and slapping hands with everybody. And that just feels like something to me that wouldn't happen if this team wasn't so successful. I mean, it's really become a cultural touchstone for people.
It has.
Still not
It's
a huge
become.
fan, but it's on the last one. It's crazy, man.
It's become a huge national story too because, like I said on the Drew show, they're this new shiny object. It isn't like they've contended and they've vied for titles and they've been to Super Bowls and lost. This is a team that for 67 years has been the laughing stock, a moribund franchise, run terribly with coaches from Rod Marinelli to Morningweg to Millen to Russ Thomas in the past to Patricia to firing Jim Caldwell, and then hiring. And so, it's new. The Lions have been a non-entity, and suddenly they're there, and it's a national story.
It feels like the Cubs. The Cubs. I was just going to say that they're Nagel.
His post-game victory celebration locker room speeches
great.
They go viral, and there was another video circulating from I don't know maybe a year ago that was making the rounds the last couple of days where he's talking about Dan Campbell, of course, where he's talking about he's telling his team we're going to start out in the shallows and we're going to drag them out into the deep abyss and then we're going to drown them. And he's just going on, and people can't get enough of this guy, right? I mean, he may be the most. It's rare in the NFL when the biggest star in the team is the coach. That's usually more the college. But he is the biggest star of the team.
And what is the biggest change that brought this back? The biggest change was William Clay Ford. And by the way, we had the author Bill Morris on, who wrote the book about the Lions called The Lions Finally Roar, that explains the 60 years of Bill Ford's mismanagement, the people he hired, and it took his daughter. There 3 general manager stories from that book. Bill Ford, it starts out where Bill Ford is in the press box in 1957 when they beat the Browns for the last championship. He's 32 years old. He's one of 40 owners in this team. It's a consortium. He decides to buy them. And when he buys them finally on November 22nd, 1963, the day that Kennedy was shot, not only are they laughing at him for spending the absurd amount of $6 million to buy this team, but then he asks his PR man, his drinking buddy, his confidant, to be the general manager.
Yeah.
And Dick Morris says, "What? I don't know anything about this. No, I'm not going to be." He says, Phillips says, "Don't worry, you'll figure it out." Well, Morris declined. Then the same thing with Russ Thomas. He'd never done it before. And the same thing with Matt Millen. Matt Millen told Bill Ford, "I've never done this before. I'm a college football analyst on TV. I'm a linebacker. Don't worry, you'll figure it out." And finally, it takes his daughter to say, "Bullshit." And she does the research and she hires these 2 guys. Her first move is a home run.
Yeah. Now,
and she's the star.
What role do you think? And I don't want to take anything away from Sheila Ford Hamp. She's a successful athlete herself, so she understands a lot of this as a player. But how much credit do you think Chris Spielman deserves for this renaissance?
No, it's a good question.
Because he seems to be one of these guys who doesn't need the spotlight, but I think people agree he was both an impactful player physically, but also very cerebral for a guy who went to Ohio State.
I think he was involved in the hiring process. I mean, I know he was involved in the hiring process of Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
So he's part of the screening committee.
He was known for his, quote, grit and toughness. And that's what Campbell is about, grit and toughness. So he may have an Aaron Glenn Did you see the interview with Aaron Glenn they had? He was interviewed by Rodney Harrison on and he said, "What's your philosophy?" I want God. I forget the terms he used, but just with a passion and inflicting pain, just that toughness. And you'd think it's such a tough game. The wimpiest guy in a football team is tougher than anybody else we know, and yet there's these levels.
Kickers excluded.
Don't you agree?
Yeah, no, for sure. You hear somebody say, "Oh, he's not very tough." I'm like, he's playing professional football.
Yeah. He's got a helmet on and pads, and he runs into people at full speed.
So it's complete. Here's a thought exercise for the three of you. So who's more important? And this can apply in a lot of things in life, but we're talking about the Lions. Who's more important, Brad Holmes, the guy that built the roster and brings the players in, or Dan Campbell?
Dan Campbell,
the guy that coaches them.
I don't know.
That is not as easy as you think.
I think it's Dan Campbell.
You know, I think the only guy in Detroit I've seen who has won without great talent was A.J. Hinch this year, because the Red Wings haven't won with mediocre talent, no matter who their coach is. The Tigers, until Hinch this year, didn't do much with the talent that they had. The Lions, you know, when they had number 1 draft picks, when they had Matt Stafford and Calvin Johnson, 2 Hall of Famers, when they had Barry Sanders, they couldn't do anything. You got to have the talent and the coach, and I think
the coaches with those guys day in, day out. We've seen talented rosters kind of shit the bed before too because of poor coaching and
Fonts
and
the
Brad,
big buck.
And
I think
doesn't Brad make decisions in conjunction with Dan?
Dan Campbell was 3-13 the first year.
4-19-1.
Sure.
Right?
They didn't.
Well, that wasn't his team.
But they didn't have the talent.
I've always had
that's the thing.
A very simple philosophy about this, and I formulated it during the Ford years. When you look around the league, where Washington had the brilliant GM and Bobby Beathard, and you had Bill Walsh was the genius and knew how to take fringe players nobody else wanted to put them together, and Belichick took little white guys and made them great wide receivers, the only ones in the league. You need somewhere in the top 3, owner, GM, or coach, that has to be a genius in some way, just a football genius. And the Lions never had one, and this is what they have now. There may be 3 of them. And that's why it's hard for me to differentiate between Campbell and Holmes, because Holmes, look at who he drafted. Look at the 6 or 7 starters. Look at Brian. What number was Branch picked?
He was in the 2nd round. And by the way,
he's the best safety in the league right now.
He's on the way to becoming one of the best defensive players in the league,
He's
right?
amazing.
Right.
He is
absolutely.
Is he the next sort of Ed Reed or Troy Polamalu type? He's incredible.
He can cover a 4-4 receiver, and he can go up to the line of scrimmage and smash a running back.
And the one game, it's interesting because you think about Aiden Hutchinson, he's a great player, really, really important. But the one game that the Lions gave up, the most points they've given up this year was, I think, 29 to Seattle. You know who didn't play that night? Brian Branch.
Yeah.
Aiden Hutchinson played that night.
Yeah,
I mean it's crazy the difference.
And they did it against who they just beat. They did it against Texans with no pass rush. McNeil was the only guy that
unbelievable.
McNeil is again. He's a 3rd round pick.
I think he's a 4th round. Is he a 3rd or 4th round?
He's a 3rd round pick, but that guy is on his way to being a Pro Bowler, right? I mean, it's incredible.
So Campbell obviously with the style, the going for it on 4th down. Of course, the one time it backfired. He made some questionable decisions against the 49ers last year. But this is kind of like, for a bad analogy, the 68 Tigers and the 84 Tigers that came close the year before, lost tragically, or not tragically, the 83 Tigers still won 92 games. But you come into the next year and say, we got the team, we got the guys, this is the year we have to do it. And the Lions, instead, there are a lot of 1 and 2 year wonders. This team is focused on winning the Super Bowl, and they are the favorites right now, as well they should be.
Shawn, when you talk to the players after the game, like I'm always fascinated by halftime. They're down. What were they down? 23-7 at half.
23-7.
They just seem to go, yeah, okay, we're gonna figure this out. Like there's just no negative thinking. Like, yeah, we got the talent. We know what we're gonna do. There's no panic.
That's why Campbell's speech about the abyss and dragging them out the abyss from the shallows was so resonant and making its way around the social media the last couple of days, or yesterday, I guess, because that speech was all about, hey, we're going to get beat up at first. Mm-hmm. We're going to take it. We're going to take some, they're going to, and we're going to have to survive, but we're going to stay with them and we're going to hold on. We're not going to let go, because we're going to keep going. And eventually we're going to work our way out into the deep water where they can't hang with us.
Yeah.
And so that was a perfect metaphor for Sunday's game, which is why that speech was going around. But that's kind of what happens at halftime. Plus that offense, it's just so. And Ben Johnson and all the players, not the players, the talent, the skill guys they have. The offensive line was getting worked over in the first half in a way it hadn't in maybe all season. Actually, Tampa kind of messed them up in the second game in that way. They're in the interior part of that line, but there's this sense that they're gonna. We talk about this rah-rah and the way Campbell coaches and how guys want to go through a brick wall, all the cliches. Campbell is a really, really smart football guy, right? And Ben Johnson gets all the credit, but it's really those two combined. But there's this sense that they are so good at seeing they're going to eventually figure out how to start attacking you, and they're going to make adjustments. And it's an underrated part of what this team does.
Back to Holmes. Trading T.J. Hawkinson made no sense. But he saw, I'm going to have to sign him to $18 million a year. He's going to become the highest paid tight end. He gets Laporta, and Laporta's just as good, doesn't get hurt as much, and is a salary that you can control. So these little moves he makes that are, and they're paying everybody, and they've still got cap room. So that's got to be brilliant too. They paid Goff, they paid McNeil, they paid Sewell, they paid the running back Montgomery, they paid Amon-Ra, and yet no problem.
Yeah. And it still comes. Amon-Ra, by the way, and Goff, those two. It's funny because the offense is built around that offensive line, but the soul of that offense are those two.
Yeah,
it's St. Brown and it's Goff and it's that connection.
It's Sewell too because the offensive line is
and Sewell, yeah, but it's just eventually they're going to make a play, and they did. They needed was it 3rd and 6 on that last drive, right?
Amon-Ra,
and Amon-Ra he sits down and then he takes off,
and that's one too. He was the 16th receiver chosen.
Oh yeah, he'll let you know.
Yeah.
Oh, how did Lions fans react when they traded up to draft Jahmyr Gibbs in the first round? It's like you don't take a small running back in the first round.
He's amazing.
That guy. I mean, look what he did in the second half yesterday, right?
As I said last year, they got runners who can catch and catchers who can run. So.
Don't you guys enjoy watching him? Watching him
Gibbs?
run?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I was saying yesterday to you, Eli. Remember that 3rd and 9, the screen where they're buried deep,
right?
And it's just like, how the hell does he get out there that fast and Pena in front of him?
Dance down the sideline.
They're just a fun team to watch too.
And
except for Mike. Mike doesn't have fun.
I think you have to be just happy for the. I'm happy for the people.
Oddly silent.
Well, that's because we're talking about the team.
You okay over there?
I'm learning.
He's not bought in yet. He's not bought in yet.
No, you know what?
Here we go. This will be interesting.
My one condition for getting on the bandwagon, I believe, has been met. I think they took the William Clay Ford patch off their new uniform.
That was on for 10 years. Yeah, I think they still have WCF somewhere. I saw that.
Until that's gone, I'm not on the bandwagon.
Wait a second. Where's your hockey?
I just took it off because it's so hot in here. It's the energy from these sports geniuses.
I'm no genius.
You predicted the score.
I never drink coffee, and it's got me jittery. That's not good.
Oh, jittery Shawn.
We may need to get you an IV drip for next week.
And it was decaf too.
The Lions have become a spiritual experience for the people of Michigan.
Wait a second. Did you go 3 pages into your notes to pull that out?
No. I was talking about it last night.
Okay.
It's
because that would have been cool.
It's a spiritual experience. You got the kicker saying that he kicks for Jesus, and you got people just even Valenti, who's the ultimate curmudgeon, was saying on the ticket yesterday that there's just something. He didn't say divine intervention, but just something magical happening here. And sports lends itself to that with the incredible ups and downs, twists and turns. Careers are made and lost on moments, games, and season. And so there's this spiritual renaissance attitude. Because people have suffered for a long time, and there's guys my age in their 70s who remember the title in 57 and thought they would never in their lifetime, after one disappointment after another, be in this position to see a team that's Super Bowl bound. And if they don't win it, just remember it's the journey, and the journey has been incredible.
It's the part you remember anyway.
28-8 since the 4-19-1 is insane in the NFL.
Let me ask you, Eli, because obviously you just sort of dated yourself there. Right.
I do it all the time.
You've been around a long time.
There's value in experience.
You've seen some iconic local teams win titles. You've seen the Red Wings break a 40-year drought or whatever. The Pistons with the Bad Boys, the Tigers in that '84 team, the Tigers in the run 20 years ago. Have you ever seen anything quite like this? with this region and a team? And I know they haven't won anything yet.
Always been great question. It's always been fascinating, except for a few years at the Dome, I think in the late 70s and early 80s, when they're only getting 40 or 50,000 people there. Otherwise, it's either the NFL or there's something about the relationship with the Lions that just runs deep. And it's puzzled me too, because there were years they were so awful, I would say to myself, this is 3 hours on a Sunday afternoon that I'll never get back. I'll record it. If something happens, I'll watch it. And now there are years they weren't even worth watching. And yet, somehow, to answer your question, this passion has simmered underneath. And frankly, I think it's the same with the Tigers.
Yeah.
When they get good, everybody's there.
Well, this year. I mean, we just saw it a few months ago with the Tigers. They were an afterthought till they started winning.
And since...
I would say 06 is probably more magical, right?
Than this with the Lions?
No, than the Tigers this year.
Yeah, 06 was.
Because they were coming out of being the worst team.
Yeah, 3 years
almost setting the
and
record.
Ordonez hits the homer to get him to the World Series. No,
but they didn't win.
I just think football crosses. It's just a broader.
Everybody loves it.
It's more representative of every group in this country. Football is
And
than any other.
It's once a week. You can come together. This Indian family I'm talking about, the grandmother's wearing the traditional garb. The grandchildren are wearing the Lions uniforms. It's once a week. It's Sunday, it's family dinner, you can all get together. It's always played on your day off. So it really lends itself to being this,
except for Monday night,
this convening time. Yeah, but
or Thursday night.
And now we have to
Saturday.
worry,
which I have 2 of those coming up.
Now we have to worry about the Lions playing on Monday night because people want to see them.
The interesting thing
Used
too,
to be a big deal.
and I saw this back with the '84 Tigers, and it's true with all our teams, even the Pistons bad boys. There's a hardcore fandom, whether the Wings, the hardcore, I don't know, it's small, maybe 100,000 people. Same with but when it becomes a big story and it becomes conversation at the water cooler, and then people who aren't fans get to kind of join in, it just becomes huge. And so the non-fans become fans because it's what's happening here, and there's a sense of pride, patriotism, community, all the things we look for in life.
Yeah.
We look
Tribal.
for tribal, right? And
well, here's the other thing. The last quick thing I'll say: we're talking
Different
about
kind
those
of Indians on the
those
tribal.
earlier teams that have won titles here in the different sports. Each of them had either a set of players or a coach or whatever that sort of tied into how this area sees itself.
Gibby with the Tigers,
Right, the Isaiah with the bad boys. I don't know about Scotty Bowman.
Going to work. I mean,
going to work.
Ben
Wallace.
Exactly.
That whole starting five.
When we have a really good team and we win a title, we don't just win a title. It's a team that connects into this area. It's really interesting. We've got a history that this team is going to end up being more than any of those if they win it.
Well, what do they say about the kicker? He goes from bricklayer to major player. What's the line that
so I've
people
heard
use all the time? Yeah.
Eli will repeat it.
It's just
He was
fun.
selling bricks.
I mean, Michigan won the title last year, and that was fun for Michigan fans. But it just
That's a different type of community, because that community is just
Tainted.
spread out everywhere, right?
it is.
But
It
when
is.
you travel like that and you run into somebody that went to that school and is a fan, it's a very different.
What's going to be more fun for you?
For me?
if they pull this off this year, if they actually win the Super Bowl.
It's hard to beat last year's Michigan season. It's hard to beat last year's Michigan season just because for the same reason, the identity of that team and guys that stayed, because they got paid, but they stayed to win that championship, and Harbaugh and all the bullshit people like ML and the NCAA threw at that
It's
organization.
loyalty to the logo. There's no greater loyalty. It's not the family crest. It's not the American flag. It's the
Might as well
logo
be.
of your football team. And one of
But
the
that
reasons
season itself, though, just everything
well,
that
that's
went
because
through
you're a
that
Michigan guy.
No,
but-
no,
but
I
for
understand
him,
that. That's why Elric doesn't care about
he's a
it. Yeah.
Spartan, and so it's
But that's why someone in Cleveland wouldn't care about the Lions.
well, it's also because the Lions are the only team. There's no competing team in town.
Yeah.
The first night that I was on in New York in 1986, I said to my producer, "Well, the Yankees and Mets play tonight. So what do you do?" Well, our policy is when the Yankees we'll take the home team first. So I show the Yankee highlights, then the Mets highlights, and I get back to my office after the first show. I get a few calls. "Hey, listen, asshole, you're new in town. I can tell you're a Yankee fan. Fuck you. This is a Mets town." And so that's the stuff. That's the stuff that happens.
Yeah.
They won the World Series that year, didn't they? Did they beat the Red
86,
Sox?
Yes.
Well, that was
So
a
you should've led
crazy
with
Was
team.
that the Bill
Bill Buckner, yes.
Yeah, you should have led with them.
Yeah, but was it Kevin Mitchell who was the psychopath outfielder? There were all
Yes.
kinds of crazy people on there.
Was Darryl Strawberry
Killed his
still on that?
girlfriend.
Strawberry, Gooden,
Lenny
And the catcher's the one that pulled it all together.
Gary Carter. You had
He was like the sage, right?
Yeah.
Keith Hernandez.
Ray Knight.
Ray Knight, that's right. Yeah. Tim Tuffle.
Ray Knight was Tim
Ron
Tuffle.
Darling.
Who was the
Sid Fernandez. You want me to keep going?
You had Gooden.
Dwight
You had
Dwight Gooden.
Ron Darling, who does a great job.
Yeah.
in
Dwight
national team.
Gooden was
Sid
the star.
Fernandez.
Yeah.
Sid Fernandez, and
I can't name a four or five.
Bob Ojeda.
Bob Ojeda, yeah, who ended up getting scalped. That's
Why
a fun
don't
story.
we? Why don't we think about baseball teams that way anymore? Why don't we remember? It's
Well, 86. That to me.
Oh, but there were so many more stars in baseball back then.
Well, they were white.
Yeah.
What's that?
They were white.
No,
And
they
black.
weren't. The
spoke
biggest
okay, let
stars
me
were
rephrase it.
black.
They spoke English.
Ken Griffey Jr. I mean, where have those guys got?
It's true.
Tell me I'm wrong. They spoke English.
Yeah, it wasn't because they were white. Because the biggest stars in baseball, a lot of them were black.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I retract that and I rephrase it as because they speak English.
Right.
I mean,
Science is making me feel uncomfortable. Am I in trouble?
Editor at the Free Press, who grew up in Columbus, a big Reds guy in the 70s. We were talking about the other day.
Big Red Machine?
Exactly. How you can remember those guys. George Foster. I mean, obviously Pete Rose.
yeah.
I remember
Johnny
George
Bench.
Foster for the sideburns. That's Hall of
You know,
Fame.
Joe
Shots.
Morgan, Dave Concepcion, Sparky White.
Pete Rose.
Spark had the easiest job for all those years. He made the same lineup every day.
Did you mention George Foster?
George,
Yeah, I
Bench-
love George
First
Foster.
off the top,
Bench,
George.
Concepcion. He had Tony Perez,
Johnny Bench.
Pete Rose.
I mean, these are like.
I can't believe I can't think of the second baseman. Wasn't he Hall of
Joe
Famer?
Morgan.
Joe Morgan.
Great
Yeah.
But
broadcaster.
if you think of a baseball team from 10 years ago that won the World Series, you can't.
I couldn't even tell you who won.
or
it,
watch
too.
the All-Star game. I don't know any of the guys.
You
in the
don't know
National League.
anybody. It's kind of sad.
Well, there's a lot of
Yes. Okay. Not for Mark. Mark doesn't. Mark doesn't.
I was
going to
say, though, I still think the 1986 postseason in baseball is the best postseason of any sport ever. It really was. You had the Red Sox and the Angels. Remember the Donnie, I can't think of his name.
Roger Clemens was
You know,
on that team, right?
Donnie Moore. when
Donnie
Dave
Moore.
Henderson hit the home run, and then Moore committed suicide
Yeah.
sometime after
Right.
that.
But that was a 7-game series.
Was that Roger Clemens?
You had Mike Scott.
Roger Clemens,
And
Mike
the
Scott,
Houston Astros and the Mets, and those went. They had like 3 games in extra innings.
That was
It is
incredible. Yeah,
the
yeah.
best postseason in any sport.
And then with the
Period.
Mets, you had Keith Hernandez as a character. Lenny
Yes.
Dykstra was a character.
I was pulling for the Astros. I like that team.
Yeah, it was a good. All 4 of those teams had a lot of
Wasn't
good.
Nolan Ryan on that team, or no?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
he was absolutely.
And then after
No
86,
J.R. Richards, though.
after 86, collusion entered the scene.
Yep.
And the Tigers started to break up because they wouldn't pay him. They promised them all that when they win if when their contracts are up and they
Jim
won a
Campbell.
championship, we're going to take Campbell. Didn't pay Lance.
Yeah.
He didn't want to leave. He was angry. He went to Philadelphia. Monahan calls Gibby a disgrace to the organization. He left.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Morris didn't get paid, and also
Wait, why did Monahan say that about him?
He wouldn't take communion.
No, seriously. I mean, what was? Why would he?
who knows?
Oh, he wanted wine with his communion.
Yeah, well,
He was
Fetzer.
he was
Fetzer had the wine.
Ultimately pure, serious Christian, and he. Hey,
But he also was a huge sports fan.
why didn't Sparky let the Reds have mustaches
Yeah,
and
or
beard?
Steinbrenner and the
Yeah.
long hair? Yeah.
Yeah, different era.
Remember when Monahan hired Bo
So,
Schembechler?
in
Yes.
In my show notes-
I remember people yelling up, "Hey, fuck you! You ruined our baseball team."
You're not going to tie me to a rusted girder. Was he when was Bo's big
Tiger
comment
Stadium.
to the economic.
Fired Ernie Harwell.
So check this out. So Bo, who of course had total control at Michigan, something that was a whole different era. He controlled the media, he controlled the town, he controlled everything, and he gets hired by the Tigers. And his first spring training, I forget, was it like 1990 or 1990? Yeah, he quit. I think 90 was his last year at Michigan. And he comes to spring training and he's being interviewed by a bunch of us down the first baseline. And he looks over at home plate and there's reporters like talking to batters around the cage. And Bo goes, "What are those guys doing out there?"
Oh, jeez.
They're reporters. Why are they on the field? Well, they're allowed to be on the field. He couldn't believe how the media could have access to players and come up to them before a game. He was totally lost when it wasn't a world where he had complete control. And he didn't do a very good job.
No. Well, before we move on from, I'm putting in my show notes, Baseball Geek Out when will it end? I guess it's right there. Before we move on to talking to somebody who can help you see
And you're
clearly.
a baseball guy, by the way.
Oh.
Well, I mean, I'm not talking
But
about
I guess you're a curmudgeon first. Okay.
Louis Aparicio. And
guess
Louis Aparicio. Yes.
we're going deep here.
You're a hater first, so I guess that's how it works.
Well, I was just about to pay you a compliment, so I don't know how that's going to
Okay,
play
well,
out.
lay it on me. Lay it on me, Mr. Ty.
Shawn also came closest to predicting the score of the Michigan-Indiana game, which
I
was... I mean, just move on.
What was it?
The final score is 20-15, I
What did I
believe. And
predict?
you came very close. Shawn, I can throw you a bone. I'm getting ready to drag you out into the deep water. While we're in the shallow end, I'll try and pull you in.
What did I predict?
Why don't you remember your prediction?
I don't
Why
remember.
would
I just
I?
know
I do
you were
all the
closer
times.
than anybody else of the Free Press Sports staff. So
Okay.
I think you predicted 20-15.
no, it was close.
Nobody
to
would
that.
ever predict 20-15 as a final football score. Nobody.
All right, 21-14.
Maybe 21-16 or say 21-14.
Okay. Note,
Thank you, Mike.
note to self: never say anything nice to Shawn. His self-loathing.
First
will
time you ever
derail
have.
the whole thing.
Self-loathing. I just don't remember the pick.
Well, no, I said I thought it was nice that he left that one time.
Do I like that my chest sags? No, but I don't self-loathe myself overall. You know what I mean?
Wow, that's a visual nobody needs. And so maybe that's why you don't want to call
We
Dr.
got to get
Yaldo.
back to the brow. We got to get back to the
Talk
bro.
about Dr. Yaldo. He
Yeah.
changed my life.
Yeah, you got three guys here who've had LASIK surgery, and then one guy who
Can't see.
looks like Uncle Fester with bifocals. but the three guys who can really see, will tell you how LASIK surgery has made a big difference, because it's such a great feeling. When an apparently depressing loss like the Lions faced Sunday night in Houston can quickly turn into a dramatic victory. It can happen when supremely smart and skilled pros produce their magic, or when Shawn pulls some prediction out of his ass he doesn't even remember. It's the same wonderful thing that happens each week with Dr. Yaldo at the Yaldo Eye Center. People with deteriorating vision who are dependent on glasses, contacts, reading glasses, leave Dr. Yaldo's offices with custom LASIK surgery or life-changing bifocal lens implants and are thrilled to know they'll have 20/20 vision or better for the rest of their lives. It's another miracle of modern science, and each day without glasses, contacts, or readers becomes a gift that never stops giving. And you can give it to yourself. If you're under 40 or so, it's likely custom LASIK. If you're 45 plus, which would be my vintage, with near vision problems, it's the bifocal lens implants. Both surgeries are quick, safe, painless, and have you back to work the next day. But the doc will probably give you a note if you want to take a day off. So go to YaldoEyeCenter.com and get a free
Play with
evaluation. It's that easy. And we have a link to Dr. Y's website on our website, which is mlsoulofdetroit.com. And when you go to see Dr. Y, tell him that's because ML told you to.
Oh man, the geeks have inherited the earth.
Did I do that?
What a dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek, or we're turning into cool guys?
Okay, that was great. What's room 7609?
I have a prediction.
Yes.
I hit Shawn. Shawn hits the floor. That's 1-2. Bang. Done.
Okay, I'm the geek of the week. What's the song?
Shawn, did you buy one of these Wicked dolls from Mattel? No. Did you? Are you thinking you'll make one for the holidays for Christmas?
But what did I predict for Michigan, Indiana?
What? That horse has left the barn, man.
Sorry. I just can't remember. I wish you'd tell me.
Check your
Gross.
notes. Or maybe it was like this show. You just show up. I think you're going 23.19. I don't know. I had some coffee on the way. I had one of them espressos, a dopo, and now I'm all
A
squirrely.
decaf.
Oh, it was a decaf. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
Decaf coffee.
Anyway, Mattel put out this link to go find out about their website.
Yeah, screw Mattel.
It turns out that it actually directed people to an adult website.
Oh, yeah, Wicked. That was the Wicked thing,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
yes. I wish
Wait, and that's
Brandon
your
was
geek
here.
of the week?
Yeah, who's the geek?
That's
Mattel?
awesome.
Mattel. They make a thing for girls. These are dolls that girls buy that make them proud to be women, that make them celebrate all this other stuff. And when they go to the website,
They'll find more women that are sex positive and making choices in their life. It's all consensual.
I guess that's one way of looking at it. Anyways, Mattel
Why are you so
intended
anti-porn?
Yeah.
Mattel intended to refer consumers
want
to
them
the
in the
Wicked
kitchen?
Movies landing page. Instead, they said they misprinted incorrect website. They sent people to an incorrect website that is not appropriate for
Do you think
children.
there's someone in a boardroom that went, wait a sec, people actually look at the box and go to a website? I mean, who does that?
Well, there's a looking at boxes joke. I'm just going to let fly there.
I think somebody looked at it and go, "Wait, I know what that site
as long
really
as there's
is."
a black bush, you're good.
Maybe it was bookmarked for some of these executives, and it just sort of defaulted there when they typed in Wicked. Anyways, Mattel for this epic mistake that I can't believe wasn't caught before it went to market. Shawn, are you happy they're my Geek of the Week?
Absolutely. Really fun.
Good geek. Good geekage.
That's it.
See you again.
There's an all-night party in room 7609. And you can dance together all night if you've got the time.
You know, that was going to be a real short segment until Nostradamus butt in there with his comments. Let's see if he can keep it.
I guess we're no more. I guess the compliments are over.
Well, that's it. Yes. Yeah. I was trying on a new pair of shoes and they hurt, so I'm going barefoot now. There's two important things to do to prepare for your future. Tie your shoes tight and call Luke Nowacki at 248-663-4748. Then make sure you have a valid plate on your car and then go see him.
Dumbass.
Because when you call Luke, talk about tight. Luke knew we were running long. He said, I'm going to give him a short read because when you call Luke, he'll make it all about you, sweetheart.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through
Mosaic Wealth.
Member FINRA-SIPC.
Mosaic Wealth.
Distinct is separately owned, and other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent.
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc.
Can I make one last sports comment, unless anybody else wants to talk about sports? For next week, there will be 200 million geeks. And the 200 million geeks are the ones like me that on Friday night will be with my beer and my whatever else I take to watch Mike Tyson, 58 years old, who hasn't fought in 18 years and looked like shit when his career ended, versus YouTuber Jake Paul to fight at Jerry World, and 200 million people around the world, if not more, are going to tune in, and there'll be an $80 million purse total for this ridiculous matchup that makes zero sense except for the fact it's very interesting.
It's a circus.
Is anybody cheering for Jake Paul in this?
No.
Well, that's a good question.
He must have the fans. He must bring in his audience. But I mean, I want to see this guy go down like Michael Spinks did. 11 seconds, put him to bed.
Was it 11 seconds?
Yeah.
But it was close.
Yeah.
91, I think. Right?
That's something like that. 91
seconds. Yeah, not 91 seconds, was it? Or is it the year 91?
It was 91 seconds.
It's so contrived. It's so goofy. Not only is it contrived and goofy, but these two guys dreamed it up when they were high on mushrooms in Barbados or some.
They should fight high on mushrooms in Barbados.
And then when it's over and they're going to get together and do more shrooms and laugh it up.
I think it's going to be a hug fest. I don't think there's going to be much boxing at all.
How about Mike Tyson and Zach Galifianakis when he can try and get him back for that sucker punch he took during the Hangover?
You know, it's funny.
That's the rematch I want to see.
It's funny you bring up shrooms because I was at a buddy's house
doing some beans in Austin.
In Austin,
what did you see? Did you see lions jumping out of trees?
I was in a buddy's house at a cookout in Austin over the weekend.
No more decaf.
Saturday night, he was saying, "Hey, do you remember the time we took shrooms? I guess we were in our teens. We stole a tank of gas, drove from Central Illinois to St. Louis.
Wait. You stole a tank of gas?
They cut it off the car. They didn't know how to siphon it.
I'm embarrassed.
Finish the story, okay?
Yeah, we stole a tank of gas. We left for
driving on shrooms. You were high on shrooms.
We took
driving.
shrooms, drove down to St. Louis, about 4 hours away, and laid under the arch on shrooms all night long, and then drove back. And
how long were you high on the shrooms? How long was it?
6-8 hours.
No kidding.
Somewhere around
4 days.
That's one of the few times I took. I'd forgotten all about that, but he's like, "Hey, do you remember the time?" I'm like, "Wait a second. We left Central Illinois to take a 4-hour drive just to go lie on the grass under the St. Louis Arch and shroom out, and apparently we did."
Shawn's focus problems are starting to make a lot more sense to me now.
That's a great experience.
But I felt bad about that. I thought I want to go back to that gas station and pay the guy back. I don't know.
So that's what you did? You just took off?
I don't know.
Are you going to send him $1.20?
Did you guys ever dine and dash? It's like dine and dash.
I did once in college. I regretted it at a Howard Johnson's.
Me too. Oh, I did it at a steak and
in
shake.
Ann Arbor. How stupid was that? We had they used to make was it the clams, the fried clams or something? But I can't. When I think back, I just think of the stupid shit I did at 18 and 19.
I know.
Yeah, that's the great thing about being 18, 19. You can make stupid mistakes like that, and you shouldn't be haunted for the rest of your life.
Now here's a mistake. Here's a mistake that a 20-year-old made. I don't know whether you this is college football, if that's okay. But
this isn't a mistake at all. We're not going to play the song. It's great.
Carson Beck, who was great last year at Georgia, they were 13-1. Before this year, his NIL goes up, and what does he do? College senior goes out and buys a $300,000 Lamborghini.
Sweet.
When in college you're supposed to be splitting pizzas and driving a clunker and taking girls out on cheap dates. So he's having a shitty season. And so what are fans going to think? You bought a Lamborghini. Who cares anymore? So it was just really a bad decision.
Maybe I need Yaldo. Is that Mike Elrick sitting over there? I can't see.
Why?
The number of Georgia players.
He doesn't like college players making any money, right,
Marc? I'm okay with them making money. I have no problem at all.
In fact, you just mean the perception of it. If you don't win, it's coming back at you 20-fold.
Right. Just buy a regular car so that you got to anticipate if things don't go well, fans are going to point to this. So it's just rather foolish and short-sighted, that's all. But this kid, how about this kid from Bryce Underwood? This is amazing. He's going to get offered $10 million as an 18-year-old, something like that, to come to Michigan and play quarterback.
Think of how good he's going to be now that he has the right coach in place.
Right.
Do you know who's coaching him?
Oh, yeah, right. Brian Stallions is calling plays. You know that, right? Yeah.
Does that work? Do you know that?
I heard that on the Drew and Mike show. I was like, wow.
That guy's so intense.
Oh, he's the best ever.
But I bring it up because
pretty much.
Think of you at 18 doing shrooms and driving 4 hours to sit and stare up at an arch. If somebody had been
on the back,
if somebody had been throwing $10 million at you to just play the same game you played,
I would have said, "Fuck no! I'd much rather go take shrooms."
You'd pay someone to drive you in your Lambo to go do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh boy.
What's next? What's next on your list of to do there?
Self-immolation.
By the way, Mike.
Somebody grab a fire extinguisher.
I had another meal right before the game on Sunday at a friend's house in Houston, and you know what? Guess what he spent 30 minutes talking about? Morrissey in a concert. I'm like, I cannot escape this. This is unbelievable.
Who?
A friend of mine, he cured salmon.
I think he's saying
salmon.
I think he's saying, who's Morrissey?
Who's Morrissey?
Oh, the Smiths singer. The Smiths. You
know
the band, the Smiths?
I heard of the band, but I don't know the band. No.
Mike is obsessed with Morrissey. So
Eli knows him as Stephen Patrick Morrissey, author of a great biography of the New York Dolls. So just for reference. Well, you know, if you like Morrissey or you like the Smiths Unite or any of the great bands that play around here, you might want to check out the Caju Cafe. It's the great place on the east side to get music, food, fun, feather bowling. One of the few places,
Great sport, hilarious.
The pride of Belgium. Monday, it's Mussel Madness, another Belgian delicacy. All you can eat mussels, along with the Monday Night Blues Jam. Wednesdays, it's karaoke. On Thursday, the Blue Cats are in. Friday, the Reefer Men. Shawn may be one of them. Saturday, the Mugs. Again, another reference to Shawn. And on Sunday, the Rhythm Rascals.
He's playing off the Mushroom Men.
No reference whatsoever to Shawn. And by the way, speaking of psychedelic scenes with Shawn, Mr. Magoo has put together this week's graphic featuring Shawn and Eli, which is fantastic. So we always appreciate Magoo's contributions. Last week, he contributed a song and a great story. This week, nobody had a suggestion, so I picked one, which is a tribute to Marc's daughters.
What?
That's all you need to know about it. It's Julian Cope, Charlotte Ann.
For God's sakes.
Because you got a kid named Shawn and a kid named Ann, right?
Kind of.
You forgot?
Kind of.
Well, I'm glad Father's Day's got 9 months to go.
And in my room, I'm alone in my room, and maybe staying here for just a while. And in my casket, I'm alone in my gloom, and maybe staying here for a while. Oh, can't you see, light is only in your eyes. Would I be guilty? Would I be? The sound you bring is an antiquated complicated thing. So please don't look to me for guidance. Charlotte, I do understand. Charlotte, I do understand. Charlotte, I do understand. My splendid art, oh my sad profession. Now stick with me and I'll betray you. Or should I lose my bad depression? My splendid art, I will betray you. Charlotte, I do understand. Charlotte, I do understand. Charlotte, I do understand. Pull me out of the water, pull me onto the land. Beneath the sky there is an open fire. Understand, Charlotte, I do understand. Charlotte, I do understand. Charlotte, I do understand. Charlotte, I do understand. Charlotte, I do understand.
Little known fact, this song was originally called Charlotte Annette, but Marc's 5-year-old daughter objected so strenuously that they changed it for legal reasons. So it's,
If I knew that song existed, I would not have named her that because that's a terrible song.
You don't like Julian Cope? Citizen Cope?
I don't like that song.
Boring.
Girl, shut your mouth.
Thank you, Eli.
Well, guess what, folks? It'll get better if you send us a great song with a great story. You can send it to mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com. We love your suggestions. We love the stories. We'll play and we'll talk about them. But we have got to get moving because we're recording a special bonus episode this week with Eli. It's Ask Eli. He's going to share his wisdom.
And I'd like to thank everybody who sat through that song to wait for this segment.
Well, this will only be available for our Patreon subscribers who commit to $5 a month. And we really need you folks. We're about to lose one of our main sponsors, which means we're more reliant on you than ever before. So if you can just give us $5 a month, that commitment will help keep us on the air, keep us going, keep Erica coming back. It's really an important way to support the show. And you can find a link to Patreon, become a soulmate, by going to mlsoulofdetroit.com. Or you can go to Patreon directly and search for Soul of Detroit. We do not have any new members of the Soulmates, so we don't have anybody to thank this week, but we do appreciate everybody who's already a member. And we don't have any donators or any contributors who can just go to mlsoulofdetroit.com and hit the PayPal or the Venmo link. We will get the dough. We do appreciate it. It does help keep us on the air. The other way you can reach out to us is with feedback. Just send us mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com. that's what, oh my goodness, that's what a couple people did. Let me tell you what they had to say. First, we're going to hit Sophia, but not literally. She says, hey there, ML. We really enjoy your political observations on the podcast and in your column this week in On Guard. I talk about who's expected to run for mayor and who's expected to run for governor. There's some names in there that you will be surprised by, so check that out. It's only 10 cents a month to subscribe to the Free Press, which is insane. So Sophia says, something on Tuesday seems to defy all logic. Can you please grace us with an explanation of how Trump won all 7 battlegrounds? We are to believe enough spirited Trump supporters in those same battleground states split their tickets to vote for Democratic or third-party U.S. Senate candidates, giving Democratic senators the victory. All made more suspicious when in Ohio, Trump carried Bernie Moreno over the popular Sherrod Brown. And in Michigan, Trump helped Republicans flip the entire legislature as well. We are not Trump voters. We are not a Rogers voter, meaning Mike Rogers, who ran for U.S. Senate. But how can you not be suspicious of these razor-thin Democratic Senate race victories in states Trump won, and the Senate race counts were the only delays? Much larger Florida had the entire state counted by Tuesday night. In Michigan, Rogers was winning all day, and then Slotkin's victory came through between 4 and 8 a.m. Tuesday or Wednesday, with ballots in Wayne and Kalamazoo counties. The Senate races that Sophia's suspicious of are Slotkin winning in Michigan, Jackie Rosen winning in Nevada, Tammy Baldwin winning in Wisconsin, Ruben Gallego winning in Arizona, and Bob Casey, who may or may not win in Pennsylvania. Well, people do split their tickets, and one of the things that you talk about, the credit that Trump gets for the Michigan legislature going red, that credit really goes to Rick Snyder, who's been raising money for Republican candidates like a demon since Democrats took control of the legislature back in 2022. But people do split their tickets. There are lots of people. There are districts where there are Democratic Congress people where Trump won by big margins, and there are this friggin' printer is going
You need to
nuts
cancel what
over
you're
here.
printing. That's why.
Looks like I'm printing the invisible phone book. But there are districts that went for Trump and have a Democratic congressman or senator or woman, and there are districts that went for Biden that have the opposite. It happens. The other thing is these votes in people have been saying, where are the 16 or 18 million votes that didn't get cast because we're supposed to have higher turnout this time than last time, but why? California is really slow to count their votes. They're still counting votes. Some of these states like Pennsylvania, they wanted to begin pre-processing absentee ballots like we do here in Michigan, but the Republican legislature said no way, and so they're slow counting those. This just happens. Different states have different rules, and people do split their tickets. And, I got to tell you, 2020 is the most challenged election probably in American history, and the only time examples of vote fraud were found were minimal, and they involved Republicans. So, these conspiracies that people are looking for, until we have some facts, let's just slow our roll, people. There's plenty of time to get excited when we have some evidence, but right now that's just the way it goes. So yeah, I'm sorry, Sophia, I can't explain this. People do what they do. And, there may be some people who are concerned about Mike Rogers not really living in Michigan until he wanted to run for Senate. That may have been a difference. Whereas with Trump, people were comfortable with him because we've known all there is to know about Trump over the last 12 years. So something to think about. Eric says, hey, Elric, it is increasingly likely MSU hired the wrong football coach again. And again, grossly overpaid. All I'm hearing from green goggle Spartans is excuses. Be patient. Total rebuild. Let's see where we are in 2026 and 2027. Wait, what? Why are we paying this Oregon dweeb over $7 million a year and his assistants more than their NFL counterparts? That's win now coin. Meanwhile,
that's market price, man.
Meanwhile, Indiana makes zero excuses, plays Cignetti far less, and went from literally the biggest joke in D1 college football history. I don't know if it's literally, although he says Jason J. in the Wall Street Journal says that. Of course, what does the Wall Street Journal know about sports? To a perfect record. I see no momentum in East Lansing, and safe bet Marsh transfers out over winter break. A very timid go green, says Eric. Boy, I'll tell you what.
I mean, Cignetti came from a 1AA team. Well,
we came from James
a
Madison.
non-power 5. Yeah, no, they're actually in the FBS.
And he'd won everywhere he'd been. He'd been on Nick Saban's staff. He's been a top assistant for.
There has been no coach that is doing what Cignetti is doing this year, so he is an anomaly.
Well, and he did it. He was smart.
Jonathan Smith, you hire him away from a major university who's now no longer Power 4, but you still had to hire him away. It's one fucking year.
Mm-hmm. And they're doing better than anybody expected. I do worry with NIL about Nick Marsh being the next Keon Coleman and Aiden Childs. If he didn't have all these turnovers, I think they'd be looking to pay him somewhere else. But
then you go get somebody else.
Yeah.
I mean, stop looking at the negative side of free agency and
now we're getting into NIL. Oh God!
Eli's patiently
Let's go back to the '86
that's
Mets.
why he's leaving.
For the love of Joe. But here's the deal, folks. If I had to pick a coach in Michigan right now, Jonathan Smith or Sharon Moore, I'd take Jonathan Smith. I think Eric is way off, and I think time will tell.
What does the Sudge Smith hire have to do with the Michigan hire?
Well, because they're talking about...
Because you always compare the two in your own mind.
Oh, why don't you wait for 20 seconds before you respond like Sharon did when he should have called that timeout? He's a bad coach. He's got a bad team. It's a bad combination, and I love it. I love it.
No, but what does that have to do with Michigan State hiring Jonathan Smith?
Well, they're saying Michigan State's hired the wrong coach again. I'm saying that I think you're wrong, and in fact, this
is my problem with you.
I was going to answer your question, but if you want to interrupt me, go ahead. Just go ahead. Just say what you want to say.
His point is, you're talking about Michigan State. Why do you need to make the comparison? Mark, I get why he made the comparison. The two schools are intertwined in many, many ways, and so
in his head, yeah.
Is that the end of the feedback, though?
Why don't you go run into that student you saw and finish that conversation that took an hour to get here? What was it about? Beans and staring at some arches and shit?
No, that was over the weekend in Texas. It had nothing to do with me coming here.
Let's put this one to bed. I think Smith is a good coach. And he's got some really talented offensive players. He brought in 61 new people. It is the first year. And Cignetti is a tough one to match up with. He had a lot less to work with than, say, Georgia does or Alabama does. And they've struggled this year, although Alabama seems to have come back. But it's wide open. It's crazy. It's
great.
3,500 free agents every year with no restrictions. And I thought he brought some good players in, but not enough. And I hate to use this cliche, but time will tell with him. He certainly deserves more than this year. Moore won. He beat Ohio State last year and was brilliant. He's not very good this year. Why? Well, first of all, he should have known the rule about what a catch is against whoever the hell it was the week before. Oregon. But I think he's going to be fine.
Eli, why are you bringing Sharon Moore into this conversation?
Because you brought him in.
Sorry. I was just trying to do the Marc thing before we...
I thought we were off sports.
Yeah, I thought we were...
Let's get to the...
I thought the show was done.
Cyrus, take Shawn out, Trump style.
Let's get to the advice questions.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
You've been prowling the town like a happy tomcat with a night full of delicatessen garbage cans. But by the time dawn rolls around, you've got that washed-out gray feeling. So you turn in at the nearest glorified flop house and hit up the sleepy room clerk for a berth.
Here's the key, room 500. Someone just checked out. You're lucky. Any special service you want?
All you want is
the soul of Detroit.